All right. Welcome, everyone. My name is Celine Bilgin, and I have the honor of introducing to you Misa Hopkins. She is a best-selling author, a coach, a speaker, and really she has dedicated her life to spirituality, self-healing, through your own journey, Misa, right? I mean, you've healed yourself from the onset of MS, a collapsed fallopian tube, chronic stress, and I see that you've dedicated your life to healing others by discovering their emotional root cause, which is why I so wanted to reach out to you, the emotional root cause of the illness. And I know that you offer home study courses, sound healing, private consulting, retreats, healing sessions. So there is so much that you offer, and I can't wait to speak to you about that. So why don't you start us off and really fill in any gaps in your story that you'd like to share with us?
Well, you've done a great job. My goodness, you told a lot of my story. I didn't set out to be a healer. It just happened. It just happened. And I don't think anybody thinks when they're 5 years old, oh, I want to be a healer when I grow up. Maybe there are some. That would be awesome if that's how it is for anybody that's watching. That isn't how it was for me. It happened because I needed to heal. I needed to heal. And it actually all began with my mother when I was singing to her. At the time she was on her deathbed, and suddenly my psychic gifts opened up. I could see inside of her body. I could see what she needed, and a day later she left the hospital. So that was where it began, and I was a successful communications consultant having a really great life, and suddenly I went, oh my gosh, what does that mean, and what do I do with that? So I folded up my practice to take what I thought was a 1-year sabbatical. 10 years later, I emerged after having healed myself from multiple conditions, a few of which you have already mentioned. So, and which is very much the journey of a healer, is that we transcend illnesses. That's how we understand what the real healing is about and the true potential of the body. It's how we awaken spiritually. So it all goes together, right? The spiritual journey of healing became the spiritual journey of awakening. And I'm so blessed to get to be on this journey. I get to meet beautiful people like you.
Thank you, Misa. It's funny. I almost think that it's an initiation. Sometimes we're presented with a matter, like you're with your mom on her deathbed, and I was listening to an audio that you had where you visualized this white light and that you were singing to her, right? And she walked out of the hospital the next day. So I have a few questions to ask you about that. So did you know what you were doing consciously? Was it just something that you knew to do? And then from there, what did you do next? You left the hospital room with your mom saying, okay, like I have this ability. What do I do with it?
Mm-hmm. Those are great questions, because I really didn't know what I was doing. I had taken one sound healing course with Mona Wilson, and it was awesome, but it was about the exploration of sound, not how you apply sound in helping someone heal. Mm-hmm. So when my mother was very, very ill, what I thought we were doing was I was being present to her so she could complete whatever she needed to complete to cross over. That's why I was there, was to hold loving space for her. Well, of course, in healing, anyone who heals knows holding loving space is really where it all begins, right? So as the morphine's taking her under, I just did what I'd been doing since I was a little girl. I mean, when I was 5 years old, I would lay in bed and I would hum. I didn't know what. They were just sounds. They were songs I'd made up. That's what I thought they were. Well, they were medicine songs, according to my native elders. Those are for healing, and they have purpose. And I just didn't know. So I'm humming them to sleep at night, thinking everybody does this, right? Well, that's what I did for my mother. I just started humming to her, and this beautiful native chant came forward that I had never heard before. And my mother was part native and had never explored her native roots. Wow. So she's weeping under the morphine. And that's when I could see inside of her body. I just saw this emerald green light emerge. I could see the infection in her body. I saw the light fill the infection. It took itself to a state of whiteness, which was completeness, my job was to hold space and be present and love her. And medicine, as my elders would call it, then just flowed through. So that was what was so transformative. It was nothing I could plan. It wasn't something I could figure out. I had to discover it. And so what happened was I was sitting on the couch one day. I was reading The Feminine Face of God. And this was shortly after my mother had actually crossed over. So she'd been well for a while, but it was her time. So she left. And I'm sitting on the couch, and this just pops into my head. I'm saying to myself, how much time do you think you have? I think I have for what? For what? And I thought about the young woman I'd adopted in my life. I didn't have a daughter of my own. I had adopted a young woman that I still love to this day as a daughter. And this thought, how much time do you think you have? And I closed the book and I said, clearly there's something I'm supposed to do. And I don't know what it is. So I need to find out. And that started the journey of my quote, quote, sabbatical. It ended up being a mystical journey. I went to sacred sites. I found my first elder to study with. I learned how to become a ceremonialist. I discovered all kinds of aspects of myself that awakened in me, including my sound healing gift, as I began to understand what it was and how it could serve myself first, because we heal ourselves first, and then how it could be of service to others.
Wow. Wow, beautiful. And I can see that you're honoring your native tradition, or, you know, with your earrings as well. So that's beautiful.
Yes, that's right. My mother, this is my ancestors and my mother, and I wear them regularly. So thank you for noticing. That's how I've been going to my work.
That's so great, Misa. And I want to ask you at what point did you discover, you know, the onset of MS and, you know, the collapsed fallopian tube? How did that all play into when you started your journey into discovering these, almost like remembering these parts of yourself rather? How did that come to play into your story, and where did your understanding and knowledge of the things that you were already learning kind of come together?
It came together really fast. Literally, as soon as I closed my business doors, within 2 or 3 months, my elder came to me and invited me to a medicine circle. So very fast. And she was within my mother's tradition, which was fabulous. That's what I hoped for. So the collapsed fallopian tube was somewhere during the time that I was studying with one of my first 2 native elders. And I was having some interesting pain, and I went to see a doctor, and we would all love this doctor. She wore mala beads, and she studied metaphysical traditions. So she was going to get me, and that was important. When I said, I've had a dream about, and I've had these insights, she said, oh, okay, let's look at this. And she said to me, I'm pretty sure your fallopian tube is collapsed. What I'm feeling is that it has collapsed. We could get some tests run. And I said, you know, give me 30 days. 30 days. I will work with it. If it hasn't repaired, then we'll talk about tests and procedures. She said, okay, that sounds good. So I went home and I worked with my sound and meditation, holding that sacred space for healing, letting any, I had been sexually abused as a child, so it wasn't a surprise to me that I was going to have issues in my root chakra. So what I was letting go was the pain, the regrets, the resentment, any forgiveness that needed to be done. I was doing that work as I held sacred space, as I held my sounds, and those beautiful colored lights that kept coming to me, you know, and did its healing work. 30 days later, I went back to the doctor. We did an exam, and she said, you're fine. There's no need to run any tests. You repaired it. So it was grace. It was total grace. And what it showed me was that we really can attract the right healers for us. And that's part of the journey. It's not just going out and trying things out. Finding the right healer that has the right respect for you, the way that you work, offers the right insights or information that you need. And really the healing was up to me. It wasn't her job.
Yes.
Mine. And she respected that. And that's why it worked. So when the MS showed up, I was living in Sedona with my husband. I'd been having these very strange symptoms. And I'd done some work for a spiritual master. And I asked in return, he's asked what he could do for me. And I said, I'd like to understand what's going on with my body. And he took me into a vision where I saw myself just racing through the red canyons. And I came out and I said, Jeffrey, the red rocks here aren't good for me. They're wonderful. I love them, but they're pulling my energy too fast. And it was actually in a dream then I continued to ask that I was shown that I had MS. The dream told me it was MS. And MS, by the way, in its initial stages is very difficult to diagnose, I understand, because it looks like so many other conditions.
Right.
Autoimmunes tend to do that.
Nerve issues, autoimmune, like you said. I just actually had shivers down my back when you said that. That's incredible. So, again, there's so much. There's like a richness in what you're saying, because there's a few things inside of that. Finding the right healer, because there is so much work out there that is healing and beautiful. You touched on personal responsibility, which I believe is immense, because we could still be going to the healers and reading the books and seminars, but then until we take the personal responsibility, I don't believe it's a personal belief that the responsibility has to be there and ownership. So that's something else I want to ask you about. What role did you see your responsibility, your own empowerment while working with these elders and your teachers inside of that?
I'll share a story with you that explains that really well. My elder's energy was so strong. Now, she healed through her hands, not her voice. It was so strong that literally you could see her skin rippling when the energy came through. It was amazing. So I was really sick one day. I think it was a virus of some kind. Super, super sick. I called my elder and I'm hoping she's going to give me some energy or send me some. What she says is, Misa, sit down with your crystals and heal yourself. Okay.
Integrity. I see that as a true healer, a teacher. I find that has integrity.
She taught me that your healing is 100% your responsibility. It wasn't her job to bail me out. It was my job to heal. Now, that doesn't mean she never helped me. She did. I mean, there were times where she did give me energy. And she boosted my energy field many times in ceremony. I can feel this little poof of energy where she was giving. But that lesson was important to me. Your healing is your responsibility first. And I find that when I work with clients, if they've been trying a lot of things and it's not moving, it's usually because they're not bringing their own spiritual gift into the mix. They're doing a lot of good work, by the way, really, really good work. But if they're a natural healer with their hands, their body wants their hands touching them. If they heal with colored light, the body wants their love and light.
Right.
You can still go to a Reiki practitioner or a sound healer, whoever you're going to, or your doctor, and get support, for sure. For sure. It can get us through the places we can't see. We need each other. But our bodies also crave what we have to give ourselves. So we are the first person to take responsibility.
Beautiful. And how can somebody, who is listening that is, looking for answers, and maybe they have an inkling for something that they, a spiritual gift, or maybe they have no idea, what would you recommend? And especially if they are working with somebody, how would you recommend that they take that space with a practitioner or healer and really take matters maybe literally into their own hands?
That's a beautiful question. I love that. And you won't be surprised. It begins with intent. Before you ever walk in the room, that you give thanks for the help that you're getting, and that you're taking and receiving this as a gift for your full healing, and that you gladly receive the responsibility of that as well, whatever opens up. whether it's something that you're releasing or something that you're bringing in, that it's your ship. You're in charge of the ship and where it goes. And you're quite happy to receive the help for that to happen. That way, if you have an experience with a healer and maybe it's not as comfortable as you wanted it to be, you can look at it and say, how was that discomfort teaching me something?
Yes.
Right? Maybe it was resolving a conflict. In fact, I had a client the other day working with a physician, and he said something that hurt her feelings. And she said, I know he wouldn't know. And I said, but now you have the opportunity to say what you couldn't have said to your father, you see.
Yes.
To go back and say, you didn't know that, but that hurt. Here's how I need to receive information right now that will work with me and for me. And if he's a true healer, he's going to show up for you because you're healing something. He'll see it. So it feels uncomfortable, but that doesn't necessarily mean it isn't a gift. And when you take responsibility, then you see the gifts more easily and you navigate through them with consciousness. It's not happening to you, it's happening with you because of where your energy is in the moment and what your energy field in its total needs in this moment for its healing.
Beautiful. It really, I hear you getting to the core of it, and it's really acknowledging being with and the capacity to be with that energy of discomfort. And that's actually how I started these interviews, Misa, is because I have never been somebody who experiences even headaches. But this past, in June, for 2 weeks straight, I was experiencing pressure cooker migraines, sinus pains, toothaches. And I knew it was a message for me. I knew that it was caused by myself in some way, some message, some emotions I was not addressing. And I just honestly surrendered to it. I said, I don't know why this is happening. I just need to know so I can move forward. And that's still my part of me that I need to know. If I look back, I'm like trying to solve everything with my mind, but I surrendered to it. And that was a really great notion for me to see Western medicine because the pain was so strong. I tried the turmeric and everything like that, but I had to take painkillers at that moment. And I said, you know what, this is a great lesson for me to aid, where Western medicine, allopathic medicine has its place. And then there is the surrender. Then there is the work that needs to be done. And I got the download to create these interviews, and reaching out to people like yourself. And I've been on your site. I've gone through your articles and, your prescriptions from heaven, and it's delightful and divine in that sense where it could be as a chronic illness for the rest of our life, and then that discomfort, it's even that surface level to experience that discomfort, but going inside and actually feeling it, being with it, is completely different. And I would even, there's a topic of spiritual bypassing. When I would feel discomfort, I would read, I would do yoga. And until that moment, I just spoke out loud to myself and said, okay, Celine, what do you need? I'm here for you. I'm doing this with you. I love you. And it was a process of soothing myself with it and being with the pain that I was feeling. And I want to ask you, you spoke about the trauma, the emotional trauma that you had experienced in your youth. And then even this past client you're speaking about not being able to speak, saying, hey, that hurt me. I am, since reading Louise Hay's book, and especially recovering from an eating disorder that I had when I was younger, I really started to tie in, where does the emotional realm fit in with the physical body? And I want to ask you, how did you know that it was tied, your prior emotions were tied to, the fallopian tube or that specific area? Or, and I see a lot of women now with hypothyroidism and being able to speak their truth. Can you speak to this?
Oh my goodness. Well, first, let me acknowledge how brilliant it was, how well guided you were internally to surrender, because your answers live in the unknown. This is the realm of the sacred feminine, where everything is held, but not necessarily yet known by you as an individual. So the moment you surrender, you open the gateway to the potential answers to come to you, and to have the courage to say, you know, I really need to use allopathic medicine, and that's not necessarily where I would go. That's another form of surrender.
It really was.
What is the answer that is right for me now? This moment where I am, and to receive from the gift of what allopathic medicine has to offer.
Yes.
It's so powerful to do that. And in my journey, what I discovered happened way back. I knew that I learned that emotions are very much at the root. Emotions and beliefs are at the root of most illnesses. And behind that is fear. And fear comes through childhood traumas and karma. Pretty much the progression that I've observed over the years. So when we follow the path, that's when we get to the answers. Well, I had to follow the path. That's how I learned it, right? So many, many years ago, long before I had any inkling about spirituality and metaphysical healing, I was having all these bizarre symptoms. And doctors couldn't diagnose it. Back then, we just didn't have that technology yet in endocrinology. And I was, you know, my face was breaking out in pimples, and I was in my 20s, and it was painful to have sex, and my breasts hurt, and on and on and on. And the solution was kind of like, get pregnant and then you'll be fine. What? I don't know that I want to get pregnant when my hormones are all messed up. So it was years. It took me 7 years with a condition for which there was no diagnosis, no treatment. 7 years I lived with this. Only progressed and got worse. And I remember the day I was standing in front of my mirror and I was sobbing. I was just weeping. And I said, I don't know what it's going to take, but I am going to heal.
Where you had that belief. Yeah, that knowing.
Very strong. Yeah, very strong. This is painful. This is hard. I am going to heal. I almost canceled an appointment to go shopping with a friend of mine, and decided I was going to buck up. I'm going to go shoe shopping or something. I don't know. And I got in the car, and the first thing she said was, I've been wanting to talk to you about something. Have you been having this experience? And she started naming off my symptoms. Yes. How did you know? Because I've had them. And most doctors don't know how to treat it. And there is an endocrinologist in this state that can help you. He's renowned worldwide. I want you to go. 2 weeks later, I had my first appointment. He diagnosed me before the tests were run. When the tests came back, it confirmed it. He put me on prescription medication for 7 years until the symptoms were gone. So my adrenal glands were in a state of hypoadrenalism. And the result of that was that I was producing as much testosterone as a teenage boy.
Wow.
So my female organs were collapsing and atrophying. Fortunately, I also, like you, found my moment of surrender. And I said, I've got to heal this depression I'm experiencing. This deep pain. And I started seeing therapists and going to workshops, and spent time with some magnificent, magnificent women and men who were tremendous healers. And about 7 years later, I really, really, truly came through the other side. At the same time that my medication was waning, I knew what had happened to me. I'd remembered the sexual abuse, what had started it all. And this is where the belief and emotions come in. This is what I learned. What I finally understood was, when I had been sexually abused, I decided it was not safe to be a girl or a woman. It was safer to be a man. So at the time in my life when my husband and I were talking about having children, that real coming into womanhood,
right,
my body started converting into becoming
Mm.
a man.
Mm-hmm.
That's how strong the belief was. And of course, the fear was that I wasn't safe being a woman.
Right. And the tricky thing is we don't even realize we make these decisions until we start to do the deeper emotional work.
That's right.
And how did you get to the point where, you know, because I find that sometimes we are looking for a quick fix or the instant healing, and it's a journey. You're really demonstrating that it is truly a journey. And were you guided from one thing to the next, or did you just, you know, the spaghetti against the wall method? You know, because there are a lot of people who have been living with a chronic illness and really have no idea where to start or to look, and they have tried all these different answers. What would you say to somebody who's just at this space where they're like, enough is enough?
It's a really, really good point. For me, I felt led. I mean, from the moment I sat down in my friend's car, something was shifting. It clearly, the universe was conspiring for me.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that was a huge piece that opened up during that time, was realizing that the universe really is working for you.
Yes.
If you notice how it is working for you. And what I love to help people get to is to really connect with the language of the soul, so that the soul can guide you better. The language of the soul is not in the way that we're talking at all. The soul communicates through visions, like the vision, that download that you described. It communicates in symbols, in sounds, maybe in phrases, maybe in different languages, through power animals, through a question that lingers in your mind. It's through the elements, through the sacred elements of earth, water, wind, and fire. It doesn't, through your dreams. So it's downloading to you, but often you're not getting the message because you think it's going to communicate. Your soul is communicating like you communicate to other people, and it doesn't. So it behooves us to open up, to discover how our soul is communicating with us. And that often is through spiritual gifts that our parents wouldn't have known to look for and wouldn't have known how to nurture if they did know to look for them, right? Those traditions were lost. Those were part of our feminine practices. Those were part of the shamanic practices, the medicine practices, that you noticed who came into the village and you noticed what their gifts were and you nurtured those gifts. And you nurtured their relationship with the animals or the plants or the stones or the dream time or however they operated in the world, the angels, right?
Yes.
How do you connect? How do you get your information from your soul? And they nurtured it so that you always had that throughout your life. And you had your rites of passage that helped you strengthen and deepen those relationships so that you learned to rely on them and recognize them in a very profound way. Well, we've lost those traditions, most of us have. So we recreate them through our own tests, which could be our health. Right? It's our quest. It's our vision quest.
Right.
To discover who we really are. That is trying to emerge through all the blocks and limits that we've put into place living in today's modern world and in society the way it operates today. So we really have to pull those apart and see how we function, how our soul is communicating to us. And when we're willing to do that, then the guidance becomes more clear and more obvious. So, for example, when I was healing cancer, I knew when I was finished, there were several, MS included, it's been my dreams that tell me what's going on. It was my dream that told me it was cancer. Oh, and told me I didn't want to hear it, which was true.
Right. I noticed that you said willing to be able, to start the journey, willing to receive it. Yeah.
Right. That's right. So after a couple of years of dedicated work, that one was a long haul, 2 years of dedicated work, I have a dream one night, the ambulance is coming to my house and it turns around, goes the other way. I woke up and I said, oh, it's complete. So the soul is such a powerful communicator, right? It's so powerful. And I've seen more than once where the diagnosis, whether it was a physical diagnosis or an emotional diagnosis or a spiritual diagnosis or a mental one, came through my soul in some way that I wasn't looking for it or expecting it. It's that state of surrender and openness. Right? It says, what? I'm here, I'm listening, I'm watching, I'm tuned in. It's the reason I love to do readings for people. You probably saw that on the site. I do readings. It's not to tell people what their future is going to be, because I don't do that at all. I suck in that, quite frankly. But really good at connecting to the spiritual gift. Saying, oh, you're clairaudient. You hear the spirits. You hear angels. Oh, then they start to tell me the stories about,
right.
Oh, that's what that, I did have that experience. Yes, because you're clairaudient or you're clairvoyant. It's going to come through your meditations and dreams, but visually. So watch what's happening visually, or you're clairsentient, you're going to feel it, or whatever it is that their dream, their gifts and their dreams operate through. What modalities? Through what modalities does their soul communicate to them? Because once you have that, you've got the keys to the kingdom.
Right. So, and sometimes we don't even realize the information that we're getting until, we have someone who is an expert in this field saying, this is, you're clairaudient, you're clairsentient. And then, like you said, people say, oh, no wonder that I've been, this thought, or I keep seeing this, or in my dreams, for example. So how does, somebody understanding their gifts, something that you're able to see in people, or maybe, I'm not sure if you're probably a little bit of all of the sentience.
Yeah, I have a little bit of all of them, so I understand them, yes.
So how would that facilitate somebody's healing on their journey? They come to you and say, okay, I want to know what my gift is. And how does that and healing come hand to hand then, and actually guide someone on their journey?
Excellent. That's an excellent question. So what often happens, for example, when I'm counseling with someone and we've talked about their gifts and now we're looking at how they apply in their lives, they start to notice what they are drawn to. So for example, let's say that I'm working with a woman right now who has tremendous creative skills and it's artistic. So the more that she expresses artistically, say through drawing or painting, the more she gets impressions that come through. And for her, they're like thoughts in the back of her mind, right?
Right.
They're just thoughts. So we were laughing the other day. I was talking about the spiritual significance of ankles because her ankle's been bothering her. So we were talking about that. And I talked about how ankles, as I was taught, is like a focal point for psychic attack. So you want to look at how you're attacking yourself because that invites opportunity for external attack, right? So I said, you can begin by just playing with your ankle. You don't have to do anything special. Just start dancing with your ankles and let your ankles start talking to you. She laughed. She got so excited. I've been thinking about just dancing around my house lately. She'd been thinking about it for 2 weeks, right? She didn't know where to begin. And oh, that's a weird thought. And how could that help with anything? Well, it's fundamental, right? If you're dealing with ankle, and ankle's a position of psychic attack, and you're now addressing the thoughts in your mind where you attack yourself, imagine how much healing you're going to unravel. As she's dancing for her ankles and listening to the message of that ankle. It's serving her entire being. It's the focal point. It's the focal point. But the message was already coming through.
Right.
She needed to be creative in this new expression. And the same thing would happen for her. So back to the beginning of the story. The more that she talked about being out in her workshop and doing creative things, I was listening and good for you. Then I would hear her tell me stories about how she was getting insights about who she wanted to see, what doctors she wanted to go to, what healing practitioners she wanted to go into, her team. First time she'd ever thought about putting together her healing team.
Wow.
So she's getting these impressions, right? For her, her cognizance is working. That's a hard one to see when you just know, but she would just know and she would follow. And then she just knows she needs to be dancing. You see, each one is following the other. It is this beautiful tapestry that we weave. So every moment of it is important. Every moment, every impression counts. It counts.
Wow. And that is why, you know, combined with our personal responsibility, having somebody to go to, a practitioner, a healer, to say, hey, this is what I have going on. And, you know, the space and the wisdom that's held, it really validifies the thoughts and the feelings that we already have. And then we can set sail to the next step, right?
Exactly. And to me, that is the role of a good healer or coach. You're not doing it for someone. You're helping them see the parts of themselves they have difficulty seeing in themselves.
That's exactly it. It is exactly it. And you know, somebody who has been on the path of the journey that we're on, somebody that has been on that path and who sees what our blind spots inside of that. So speaking of, I know you have a best-selling book and, you know, websites, programs that you offer. Could you speak to that and where our listeners can find out more about you and work with you?
I'd be happy to. My website is misahopkins.com. And I have several best-selling books. I have 4 now. And the first one is The Root of All Healing, 7 Steps to Healing Anything, which I wrote while I was healing MS so that I would remember the steps.
Wow.
As they were being given to me from my guidance. And then I've written 3 books in the Sacred Feminine Awakening series, which are all taking us into the depth of our yin energy, absolutely necessary for healing and often totally misunderstood, misused. And it's really not recognized for the power that it is. It is that capacity to hold space where all healing begins, to hold in love. So all of those can be found on my website. Plus there's a free report called Beating the Odds, 10 Beliefs That Can Short Circuit Your Healing. And today we talked about a few things that can absolutely short circuit your healing if you miss them. So I hope that folks pick up the book and take a look at a few other places where our beliefs actually are circumventing our healing subconsciously. And so there's an opportunity to shift it, make things happen.
Beautiful things happen, really. And Misa, thank you so much, really, from the bottom of my heart to spend the time with me and our listeners and really sharing your journey, sharing your wisdom. And I just look forward to more of your content, and I'm really connecting further with you. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much. And thank you for your beautiful, radiant work in the world, for hearing and getting the download and creating this sacred space. Awesome.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.